My name is Ron Astor. I'm a professor at the University of Southern California in the School of Education and the School of Social Work. And this particular project started about a year ago in conversations that I had with superintendents from 8 local San Diego school districts. One of them is in Riverside, Temecula, Fallbrook Elementary, Fallbrook High School, Escondido Elementary, Escondido High School, Chula Vista, Bonsall, and Oceanside. That should be 8. And the conversations had to do with military-connected schools and the needs of school districts that are run by civilian school boards and many times civilian superintendents that serve a large number of military families. In about 2008, Congress kind of recognized this deficit that there's not a lot of services and supports for school districts that are around military bases in the United States in particular, and that most of the funding and most of the resources were going to Department of Defense Educational Activity schools, which serve about 85,000 kids worldwide. But it looked like since the beginning of the war till now, about 2 million kids were served by schools run by civilian local school boards. And in that particular, looking at that particular scenario, these local agencies really didn't have a good sense of what were the needs of the military families and kids. Some of them did, some of them have great ideas. So Congress realized there was this empty gap. So they made it a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, between the Department of Defense and Department of Education, that they would start getting resources for these schools, because the vast majority of military dependents are being served in these schools at one point or another. So DODEA, Department of Defense Education Activity, started this partnership program that we ended up getting the grant for with this consortium of 8 districts. The goal of it is really, of this particular project, is to provide resources for all the various different partners. Our particular view is a little bit more elaborate than the general DODEA viewpoint. We first think that everything that's presented to military families and kids should be evidence-based, that there's some kind of evidence that shows that it works, that it helps. That could be from the ground up. It could be things that families have already done or schools have already done that people love and like and work, and we'd like to actually measure that and document it. This is part of what we're doing here today in terms of the videotaping and getting people's different opinions on it, but we're also measuring it quantitatively. And to help the districts figure out what kind of resources they need, where, which classes, which schools. One of the first things we realized is that many of the school districts have no idea who the military kids are, what schools they're in, what ages they are, and what kind of resources. So the first thing we did is we partnered with the state, and we came up with a piggyback system on the California Healthy Kids Survey. That's a survey that's been run since mid-1980s, 85, in every school in California every other year. And we argued to the state and to WestEd, the agency that works for them, that we ought to have a military module. One for the kids, elementary and secondary, one for the parents, one for the teachers, and one for other staff as well. It's the first time that's ever been done in any of the states. We'll be the first in the nation. And they agreed to it. We are actually going to be piloting that February and March in all our schools, so that the schools will have a sense. They're anonymous surveys, but they'll know what grades kids are in, what schools have the greatest resources, what are the issues that the kids. So it's in some ways giving voice to thousands, tens of thousands of kids on what their issues are, so that the districts could funnel resources to the right places. Having that per each school for the parents and the teachers and principals will be really, really valuable in terms of not just plugging in any old program, but figuring out the right match, the right place. If this works in June, the state has agreed to pick this up. We hope they will, and we hope this will work, and that'll be available to all 10,000 schools in California. If that works, we hope other states will look at it as well and think of kind of an anonymous way to figure out where everybody's at and where to get the right resources. So we have a couple of layers to the program. First layer is this database. We want everything to be done not just by word of mouth and opinion, but through the voices of the students, through the parents, and administrators who work with these kids. And we don't see this as data and surveys. We see it as a polling, as a way of their giving voice in a collective. The second one is to actually develop professionals, and we have interns. We created an MSW program that focuses on schools and military-connected schools. We started off with 31 students that are placed 2 to 3 days a week in these elementary schools. They do everything from counseling to community organization. Let's say a school needs an after-school sports program, or a tutoring program, or a transition counselor to help families come in, or a buddy system. They could do all those kinds of things. And the third layer is really working with different policymakers, and I mean board members, superintendents, members of Congress, to help identify what the resources and what the policies issues are. We just started out, but we're very excited, and we're bringing together all these stakeholders right now to get their views and opinions of how the next 3 or 4 years should go forth.